Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is January the 12th of 2023. And I've heard it said that pain is a sign of weakness leaving the body. Well, I must be filled with weakness because I've been in constant pain for quite some time now. A lot of people have wondered about the subjects that I'm presenting on my channels. And on this particular channel, to which I have not posted a video in quite some time, I wanted to introduce myself with a little bit of information that'll help tie these stories together. Because for most of the people who have watched this channel, you've seen some of the topics of healthy food and fasting and eating a more plant-based diet. Those topics, in conjunction with the 7-day vegan challenge that I took some time ago, have resulted in interesting findings. Now, as of this past year, I am 46 years old. And with that in mind, some of the details become quite cloudy to me. Like, for an example, when I say I'm 47 years old or 46 years old, I really honestly could not tell you right now. My head is hurting so bad, and it feels as if I have a sinus pressure based headache. And it's possible, if you listen to this video, you can hear a lot of wind in the background on occasion. Did you hear that? So you can hear some wind, and it's possible that this front that's come through has done something to where internally I'm just not feeling right. So again, I'm introducing myself to you, and I'm telling you that a lot of the details are going to be very challenging to hear from start to finish if you cannot remain focused enough to follow someone telling a story. These stories that I'm telling, I've broken them down in many different variations, even as short as 1 minute segments that have been said in song itself. I've made songs to talk about how I'm feeling, how I feel when I eat differently, how I feel when I dream differently. I've done all kinds of things that don't quite resonate with everybody. And so here I am revisiting this channel that you are just now seeing, and you're seeing this channel in response to the questions that I'm often asked, both in person and virtually. And quite often I'm asked, how are you feeling? How have you been doing? What have you been up to? And I begin to answer the question saying, I've really felt kind of bad. I've really felt poor. And so that brings us full circle to this 7-day vegan challenge concept. On my journey, the journey that has brought us together, you and I, you, the participant, the viewer, on our journey, my portion has a little bit of insight from a variety of points of view. But the most interesting, profound, almost revolutionary concept is, if we eat clean, we don't feel mean. Anytime that I mention food is mood, health is wealth, and anytime that someone wants to refute that and basically control the direction of the conversation to say, I don't want to talk about this right now, this has nothing to do with whatever it is that we were trying to talk about originally. In every instance where someone attempts to sidetrack that insight, I begin to remember how much I am in pain right now, how much I'm hurting. And also at the same time, I'm participating in the very system that is making some of us feel ill. And part of the participation has a lot to do with whether or not I get to see the people with whom I have had relationships in the past, with whom I currently have relationships, with whom I will in the future have relationships. In a lot of cases, how we participate is basically who we are participating with. And so we have to look at the construct and marvel at just how ingenious it must be for us to continue to want to be a little bit inconsiderate by continuing to purchase items that come in one-time use packaging. When we consider 7-day vegan challenges, eating less meat, regaining our health so we don't feel like we're in pain constantly, when we consider those things, I'll be the first one to tell you that talking about these subjects is near impossible when it comes to talking with what I'll call a non-believer. The focus of this particular recording of knowledge that I'm sharing with you today on January the 18th, January the 12th. For those of you who are new to my channel or to understanding who I am, I was physically assaulted as a toddler by my parent, by a loved one. Physically assaulted in the form of being thrown headfirst into a tub because I wet myself as a toddler. And it hurt. If you've never been a toddler thrown headfirst into a tub, you may not understand the pain that it causes in your head. Right now, at this moment, it feels like I've got a reverberating pain that feels just like that moment when I was awakened. I was awakened as a toddler to violence. There are nations right now where toddlers are being awakened to violence. And here, where I am at, I have the luxury of, look at the luxury around me. Look at the luxury I'm wearing. Look at the scenery in the backdrop that I'm about to enjoy after I drop this knowledge right here in this format, where the response to the questions, how are you doing? What have you been up to? How have you been? My response is this: I myself have felt ill, and I have to imagine many of us have felt ill. Otherwise, why would so many people get upset when I mention those truths? I believe it's because many of us have been hiding the truth and not talking about how ill we feel. So today I'm going to use a story, an example. Some might call it a parable. And I'm ashamed to say it as blatantly as I'm going to say it. And also I'm going to tell a story that mentions that this is not a blameless situation. I myself am contributing to the very things that have continued to make me ill. But to start out this very day with this message about why I'm having trouble focusing on certain details, but not other details, to put it all into perspective, I want to tell you, yes, I lost a significant amount of weight doing the 7-day vegan challenge, but also this month itself, on January the 2nd, Monday, I weighed 259.2 pounds. And on Sunday, January the 8th, I weighed 250.4 pounds. So, did I attempt the 7-day vegan challenge again? No, I didn't. I was alternating every other day, eating standard American diet food, and then on the alternating days, salad, water, beans, fruits and vegetables. I still was able to lose 8.8 pounds alternating foods. 7-day vegan challenge, 4-day vegan challenge where it's every other day. Whatever the variation was, I recognized as I ate cleaner, I produced less one-time use, recyclable or otherwise, waste. Not too long ago, I was asked by another entity how I was feeling about their service. I was asked repeatedly how I felt about their service. The reason I keep waving this bottle around here, I'm not trying to taunt anybody or point out any incongruities in terms of how this pertains to the service I received. But the number of times I was asked how I was doing with regard to that service prompted me to respond, I feel like some of what we are getting in exchange for these services, globally perhaps, is costing us all. So recently I went in for service, took my vehicle in. A lot of unusual things happened, but in the long run, my vehicle was repaired, which if you look at my other channel, you'll understand I use this vehicle for practically everything, including a place to sleep. And so this vehicle was serviced. It now works flawlessly. I've had my vehicle serviced by these amazing professionals all of the time for everything. And in this particular instance, my vehicle was returned. And it has a luxury group, including this panoramic sunroof. The luxury group of instrumentation includes memory seats. So when my vehicle was returned, the seat was in a much different position than when I operate the vehicle, which is understandable. I'm quite tall. Not everyone is as tall as me. Similarly, I'm not as tall as everyone else. So the seat was moved quite a bit forward, quite a bit higher, and to my surprise, both seat memories were oriented in completely different positions than where either of them were oriented to begin with. So, service was done perfectly. My little convenience feature where I was able to, in the past, click on a button to restore my preferred settings for this place that basically it's like my office chair. For me to set that and then have the convenience to push the button to restore it, that wouldn't have made it a big deal. Except for both buttons were reprogrammed. Someone has to do that manually. The persons who had my service, my vehicle, who charged me for service, also somewhere along the lines left this bottle in my console. In my console, I have this bottle, which I still have not removed. This happened last year. And I wanted to talk about this. How am I feeling? How are you feeling? Are you guys receiving the same kind of oversights? Do you see things blowing around down the highway? Do you see things left inadvertently by many of us who cannot pay attention because our head hurts? We don't know if we're 46 or 47. I couldn't tell you right now. I'm on the spot. One time at this school that I went to, there was a girl who had the exact same birth date as me. In order to make sure I wrote down the correct birth date during the first day of that class year, I walked behind her so that when we wrote our names and our birth dates down, I would put the right answer. It's a true story. So recently I was asked how I was doing, what I've been up to. I've been in a lot of pain, and I must have a lot of weakness to work through. And that's why I've been doing everything I can, except for the 7-day vegan challenge. My head hurts. I've got inflammation. And I've got unusual aches. And all kinds of undesirable effects are happening. And all the while, I've got the convenience to keep doing what I'm doing. But while I'm doing this, I'm also noticing all of the entirety of nature must be ill as well. And everywhere I look, I see the evidence of our destruction. And everyone who asks me these questions, I try to explain, this is why we should try it this way. If you could please allow us to do it this way. But our adults get extremely angry when I talk about how it's probably not the adventure outfitter that's working tirelessly, even though their articles that they print out and send over and over into the equation might make it seem like they're working tirelessly. It's not them who are working tirelessly at their desks behind the counter. It's the people who are out in the field picking up the pieces. And I've been trying to pick up the pieces of trash all over places such as this place where I'm going to be right now when I go for my walk. But my head as it's hurting and splitting pain, and my knees as they ache, and the damage that I've taken when I fall inadvertently picking up this trash much like this. It's a deterrent to even want to participate in the cleanup process. How am I feeling? I'm feeling like a lot of us can take a break. I've seen and participated in water fasts where, thank the Lord, I have access to water, to drinkable water. Think about all of the flooding that's occurring in California right now and how difficult some of those water scenarios are going to be. Think about all of everywhere who is going through adversity. God help us all. And people are more concerned about whether or not we've opened gifts which we might have received on Christmas or Thanksgiving or our birthdays of last year. All of these things that we're doing, daily entertainments, adhering to a regimented schedule, oftentimes driven by consumerism, are all circular, cyclical, emphasis on sick, experiences. One time I made a point with some of the people who I would travel with that this was wasteful. But they continued to buy pallets of these things upon landing wherever they landed to explore and enjoy and consume whatever they were consuming. And as much as I continued to say, I don't want to participate with this, I don't want it, over and over, these people would taunt me and ask me if I wanted a bottle. I call it taunting. They might have simply been in such pain that they couldn't recognize that they were saying it over and over and over, like taunting. I've talked repeatedly with people who will ask for prayer, just to pray, because they really hear the information I'm saying, and it all ties back to gratitude. For some who think I'm rambling away, even right now, they have still not heard that I'm answering how I'm feeling to them. For all of who cannot concentrate long enough on a subject to remember what this topic is about, let me recenter the topic and say this specific channel is about regaining our health. Health is wealth. To be in pain is quite a choice. To cause others pain knowingly? What if we didn't know that we were causing others pain by repeatedly asking, hey, do you want this? Do you guys want this? I didn't. Let's just break this down just for grins. One pallet of this comes shrink wrapped in a big giant, what is the material that holds it together? Plastic? Big giant plastic layer. This bottle has an additional layer. This is paper. This will also blow off at some point if you left this in the wild. And there are two more separate components to also fall off and disrupt the system. All of these things were only necessary if someone needed a pacifier on the trail. None of these things are necessary to take a walk. For the standard American diet, however, people can be in such distress that they might die due to the uncertainty because of the discomforts that they're feeling. Even the discomfort of a conversation like this can cause people to become triggered. And a lot of people who are true narcissists will use those topics towards me and say that I'm becoming triggered. I'm triggered. I'm triggered because I see all of these things all over the place. I'm not triggered. I was asked in a survey what I thought about the services that I received. One of the questions that's asked is, was your vehicle returned cleaner than when you dropped it off? I assume that some people must receive car washes. I don't get car washes at my dealership, but I don't go there for the car washes. I go there for the amazing service, which I did receive. And at the same time, I had to answer no. And I had to clarify. I received my vehicle in condition that was less useful. Or I should say less clean. It still is useful. But the non-owner of this vehicle did change the memory seating positions and place into my vehicle the topic of discussion. Health is wealth. The cleaner we eat, the more amazingly healthy we become. And so too does our environment. Our environment is tied directly to our own levels of control. If I take control of myself, I'm able to have the energy to control that which is around me. So I've been paid very highly in the past for a lot of different things, a lot of different ways to lead the group to achieve levels of success. And in this particular instance, I'm continuing to be receiving more than I feel that I deserve. But the reasons that I'm receiving those gifts, those contributions, is because I am giving valuable knowledge in exchange. Otherwise, why would these relationships continue? Relationships are very interesting things. Some people believe that they can disrupt the relationship by not engaging with it. And some people understand that one side of the equation is engaging only in warlike tactics. On my other channel, I talk a lot about spirituality and how there is an entity that comes to kill, steal, and destroy. In that subject material, which you can view on the other channel, there's a spirit of truth and a spirit of error in terms of the works that we produce. If we're introducing a lot of errors, we may not be paying attention. If we're not paying attention, maybe we're in pain. If we're in pain and we're not able to relax through that pain, we might be triggered by conversations that say words that we are either unfamiliar with or that we're familiar with from a different experience in our past. The triggers that we experience are oftentimes tied to subject material that we're simply afraid of talking about. If I'm talking about plastic all over the trails and that we are the ones who are introducing it, some of us might become very disagreeable. So, I realize real lies. I realize that even my reusable cup is another liability. What happens when we have so many items that we literally could stop production on everything and almost 100% go into a prolonged period of looking to our reclaimed materials and clothing stores, like the places that bring goodwill or the army that brings salvation? What if all of these stores became the places that are cost-conscious warehouses, that are Sammy's warehouses would then distribute? And what if the membership only cost responsibility? How would we gauge responsibility? Would it be if we gave someone a container and they were able to hold on to it long enough to not just leave it in someone else's car over and over? Would it be that if you would treat someone or something else the way that you treat yourself is a direct reflection, as above, so below? Would it be that as we ate more and more sustainably, would it be that we would come to, like we would become aware? Would it be that we would stop asking someone, hey, you want this? You want a bottle? Want some water? Would it be that we would stop trying to instill our own beliefs, our own ineffective beliefs, and we would start to learn, what if we didn't know what our beliefs were? What would happen if we had a conversation that included topics from the past? What would happen if we had a conversation that included topics from the current? And what would happen if we had a conversation that included the possibility of a better future for all of us? Those are the questions that I've had when I ask people questions, and these are the feelings that I have when people ask me, well, how are you doing? What have you been up to? On my channel, on all of my channels, the main discussion points are wellness and conservation. They go hand in hand. You can look at the journey in a style of video here, which includes both language, mannerisms, and also the aging process. So here I am. I believe. I believe everything is interconnected. I believe we can lose 8.8 pounds whether we're eating a 7-day vegan challenge or an alternating day vegan challenge. The main difference that's been occurring this time is I've been enjoying my workouts. And workouts are something that we can call workouts, or we can call it survival. Health is wealth, and what's coming our way might require that we be in ideal health. What's coming our way might require absolutely no participation and just sitting back on the easy chair, continuing to try to push our marketing questionnaires upon one another so that we can make sure we all want to be outraged at the same things. We don't want to be outraged alone in the group when no one else is outraged. For all of us who cannot understand and permit for a variation in our mindset, we might be getting triggered. For all of us who are able to withstand the headache, withstand the initial onslaught of a demonic curse, or what I would call inflammation. For those of us who are able to withstand that and just know that we are here in favor of one another, we're going to continue to shine on. And as long as we're able to reciprocate that energy positively, guess what? We'll be able to see each other. But to answer your question, how I've been, what I've been up to, I received birthday cards, Christmas cards this past season. Again, it's January the 12th. And at the same time, unlike any years in the past, there was no family gathering at all. And so those cards that I received in many cases remain unopened. And I know that there's a bounty in there, gifts. But I also know that as ungrateful as I must seem, it's quite the opposite. I'm overjoyed that anyone continues to try and help someone to have a brighter day. And I'm also overjoyed when anyone asks, well, what's your opinion? How did this go? So in this particular survey that I received, I indicated that I wanted to be contacted about this situation. I said that I have not removed this bottle from my vehicle in case someone wants to take the lid off and do a DNA test to find out whose it was. I was doing that jokingly. I said that jokingly. But what wasn't a joke is that, hey, I do want to talk with someone about this. Because my motive is, how do we help you to find a better advertisement medium that does not include one-time waste, which becomes a part of this landscape around us? How do we do that? Do I write a song that talks about how much I enjoy this vehicle and talks about how I wouldn't have minded it in a hybrid instead, but also that talks about how do we reduce the problem by addressing the situation at the root from the start, instead of 4 years from now voting for someone else who we find out is just as ineffective as the other person. They might be extremely effective people, don't get me wrong. What I mean is, in this particular nation, it seems like no matter which side was selected, all of it still sells us the same thing. All of it still leads to the same unnecessary distractions and disruptions in the system. And all of it still seems to produce the same thoughts in my mind where I wonder, have I consumed so much from these items that the excess itself, is what's causing me this pain? Then if this is true, how much pain am I causing other people indirectly, inadvertently? Even by my very acts of kindness, which oftentimes are misunderstood. And if you're still listening to this, congratulations. You might recognize this message was directly for you. And in return, I know that you must have a message directly for me. We're unable to learn together when we have these obstacles, these challenges. There's a lot of work that needs to happen to streamline the circumstances that we're being faced with. They're monumental tasks that simply cannot wait until the next generation or the next election to be addressed. They need to be addressed right now. Whether we found one classified document or two or 200. The classified documents really don't matter any more than admitting yet another abundance of resources that people can become so forgetful about that it's just carelessly being discarded all over. Imagine if there are any classified documents in California that are now being strewn about all over because of the devastating effects of these floods. Imagine that the classified information is that all of the wildfires created such loss of habitat on the ground that it was inevitable that there be landslides because there's nothing for the trees to hang on to. The vegetation isn't there. All of the dirt is eroding away. What if the classified information was as simple as common sense? What if we could talk about these things that had a lot to do with, we need to change our tune, if this is true? If we're coming up on cataclysmic events, catastrophes, we might want to pay attention. And if we don't want to pay attention, we wouldn't have been participating on these channels. And if we weren't paying attention, the paper money, paper cards, paper men, it's been very ineffective when it comes to building our levels of communication. The absence of family during family events, I don't believe our grandparents would have admired that. I don't think our forefathers would have admired that. I don't believe that the native entities here would have admired that. Our families are every bit as unique as the ecosystems that we're destroying around us. And in only some instances have I been able to resonate with people who feel the same and who recognize, yeah, it might be a challenging battle to try and figure out how do we sing a new tune. But it also might not be that challenging if we actually would have ever sung to begin with. So there are a lot of things that I think about when it comes to the 7-day vegan challenge that I experienced way back when, and to the alternating day vegan challenge that I experienced just now this year, where I still lost 8.8 pounds, but where I still have a pounding headache on occasion, possibly because of this front that came through. But I also know that when I consume differently, when I have just plain, basic, all natural foods, I absolutely feel differently. And I do not experience the same inflammation and pain and weakness that I had to experience prior to that. Opting for convenience all the time is kind of a weakness. Some of our educators don't even have an awareness that they can teach us these alternatives, these concepts. In this era, more than any other era, we are all in jeopardy of starving for information, for truth. And that's why these channels exist. And that's why I told this story in this way, where you have a very simple version on this channel that tells you, vegan challenge, easy. You just pick all natural food. One tormentor of mine in another walk of life would constantly ask me all kinds of weird questions to try and ask me, do you want this? You want this? You want that? They would ask me, is chicken an animal? When I said that the vegan challenge basically is comprised of fruits, nuts, and vegetables. No animal products, no animal at all. Is chicken an animal? Recently, I called a direct family member to wish them happy birthday. And much like when I urinated myself as a toddler and was thrown headfirst into the tub, this person disavowed everything I said, renounced anything about me, called me all kinds of names. And essentially, what I recognized is that all those names they were uttering carelessly towards me, the person they created, were really words about themselves. So when I recognize that lack of control and the hostility, and that I can also recognize it because, well, it takes one to know one, those are the times when I learned about the alternative: forgiveness, peace, love. In some cases, the vegan challenge might need to be discussed because, well, we love our pets. Why wouldn't we love a chicken? We've been taught to eat the things we're eating without even thinking about what kind of a life that life must endure for us to consume it. What kind of a life would any of those establishments that we go and visit, what kind of a life can they live if we don't do something other than just consume it? Where do we reciprocate with that which we are consuming? Do we ever walk on our trails like I'm about to and pick up the trash like I've done quite a few times that other people are leaving? And do we pick up our own trash? Do we ever reduce the amounts of trash that we are introducing into the system? And again, whether it's recyclable or not, look at how many components this is comprised of. 1, 2, 3, 4. Plus the wrapper that this thing came in, 5. Think about all of the transportation that it took to give us this convenient option that some people might really need now. Maybe there is a place for these things. And at the same time, maybe there's a need to reevaluate how we distribute certain things. Now, I'm going to end on the same concept of plastic bottles and how the delay in action relates to the inability to communicate. Not too long ago, towards the end of this past year, there was an article about one soda company or brand, one whose bottle is green, how their bottle could not be taken to recycle facilities because, well, it's green and the dye in it makes it unable to be recycled in the same manner. That particular brand addressed the situation by saying, well, we're going to change to a clear bottle X amount of time from now. It wasn't an immediate shift, although it could have been. And the only reason it's so laughable is because whether it's in one color bottle or the recycle version, the recyclable variant, we're still at a point where I think it's causing devastating effects to the entire ecosystem in every case. On this trail itself, if I find less than 3 bottle caps, I would be surprised. And if I ever walked with anyone who was carrying these things, I would not be surprised if at some point they've dropped some of these items. Some people are very careless with their items. I used to work as a make-ready person, a porter at a car dealership. So, revisiting this topic, when you ask how I feel about the service that was received, I was a part of the service stream, and I would not change somebody's memory seat positions. I hardly ever tried to even change their seats. I would cram myself in before adjusting the seats, just out of fear that it wouldn't be pleasant for someone else who spent a lot of time in their car to have the wrong settings when they got back into it. In all cases that I'm talking about these situations with experience. So, if I mention all the trash on the trails and someone tells me, well, why don't you take bottles and cut them in half and tie those to trees and put plastic bags in the bottles so that people can pick up the trash on the trails? Today's a very windy day. Imagine on the days when it rains. Imagine every situation that occurs out in nature and tell me, if I were soliciting advice for picking up all the trash so that I could do it myself easier, I don't believe that I would ever have received information that basically relates to let's put more trash into the environment actively. I would never have expected to receive that kind of feedback, but I do. We all do, because some of us don't have experience, real world experience, with what's going on right now around us. That's why I'm going out for a walk in nature. There are a lot of smart cats up the road with whom I've attempted to discuss these topics. They're still selling their content. They're still selling new content. They make a lot of money. I'm not here to make money or to make an industry collapse. I'm here to make a point that when you ask how I'm feeling, and when I start to answer, and it's clear that you're not even interested, that kind of adds to the pain. And like I say, whether you believe it's real or perceived, I actually have a very intense headache, right? It's a head pressure. With and without medication, it's a very constant head pressure that just, sometimes it's there, like maybe on this day when this front came through. Sometimes it's not. Like maybe when I eat more plant-based, you hear that bird? I think it just stopped. Maybe when I eat more plant-based, my pains are erased. I paused right there so that hopefully we can hear those bird calls. So that's what I'm about to do. I'm about to go for a walk in nature where formerly I was able to see all sorts of nature. Lately, especially if you look at my other channel, you'll see there have been some anomalies in wildlife. My whole focus, ever since anyone has known me, has been nature. My whole experience has been met with being raised by an abusive parent. And an unwilling participant in many terms as far as my other parent. What I mean is, one parent was violent and what I will call abusive, and the other wasn't. That's just all there is to it. But the way that we are able to participate in parenting, even that has been significantly undermined by some of the roles that we continue to allow even the different genders to pretend that they're okay. Some of the roles are not okay. Toxic masculinity is a thing. Narcissistic traits is a thing. Getting triggered is a thing. But even in our most uncomfortable times, staying in control, that's a dying art. The art of dying is to remain calm no matter what the circumstances are, because there's a higher power and there's a whole other purpose to all of the things that we're experiencing. For all the beauty, there was also all the pain. And so as I walk through this beautiful place, feeling the pain, I understand I'm not removed from Mother Nature. However, because of the business that we're in, for some reason, I've been removed from my own parents ever participating in these holidays this past season that were so fundamental in the past, with an emphasis on fun, to family. What happened to that family support when people were going through pain? What happened to it? I'll have to say, it's turned into something else where we think we can support one another by asking, you want a bottle? You want a bottle? You want a bottle? You want a bottle? Some people drink other bottles to pacify. That's just a level of oversight where we do not want to address the past. That's dangerous. Those levels of addiction are absolutely dangerous. So for anyone who had trouble thinking about a 7-day vegan challenge, for anyone who had trouble listening to this entire conversation, because it was so hard to sit still for almost an entire hour, or actually for an entire hour by the time this is said and done. For all of you who took the self-control to hear this whole message, thank you so much. I absolutely appreciate it. I know that we're visiting one another both in real time, virtually, and in all kinds of ways. I know that we're doing it. I know that we're overcoming the things we're overcoming. And I know that no matter what, this channel, to answer everyone's questions, is absolutely about peace, love, and all that old school stuff. So until next time, stay tuned, Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and share. Sharing is caring.